Okay, I have papers for you, the summas. Hey guys. Can it? I'm going to be freer. See, I have to be nice to the younger kids. I feel like I have. They're like, let's stop talking now. And you guys like, can it? No, I'm sorry. We're recording that. Now everybody's going to watch this like, she's really mean. So for your summas, I mean, obviously I'm going over grammatical things. There may be one of you that I put, please ask about this in class. You know, I do that periodically because I think everyone should probably hear about it. But I'm trying, so some of you are very organized. And so I'm going to say this, I think that being organized is some people just are more than others by nature, okay, and your thoughts and your belongings and everything, but we can all learn to be more so, okay? So some people are working on that. Hannah, would you scoot so poor Lexi doesn't have to leave? Thank you. But some of you, some of you give me a paragraph and it's very coherent, you know, it just flows, and then some of you, it's just like a lot of ideas jumbled together and not really flowing. And that doesn't mean your ideas are bad, okay? And that's what we're gonna do here together. I'm gonna try to find ways to help our ideas flow better. That's the whole point of these exercises. So if I wrote something like that on your paper, we're going to work this year on getting your ideas. That's not, that just means, oh, that's just something I need to work on. It's not a problem. But please, if I write something on your paper, once again, and you don't know why I corrected something, please ask. Down to the simplest comma, okay? You think I need a comma here and I don't know why. This is not a stupid question, okay? Are we listening, Carl? Okay, looks like we're having a conversation. Maybe. Also, it looks like we might be making little hand things. Oh. You think, okay, it's a Hannah, but you think I'd remember, but I just know Hannah. Hannah S? I thought so. Okay. Walking around funny like a duck because I've got this cord hanging off me. Okay. Alex. Your paper. Oh, I've got more than one. Oh, I have a whole ton of yours because you emptied your.
I forgot my.
He has been forgetting. Oh. And okay, so there's a handwritten one that has no name.
That's mine.
Okay. Oh, I knew that was yours because I recognized the writing. Or maybe I didn't see it. What? Okay, what are you looking at, Alex?
I know, I'm just looking at this. I'm sorry, it's good. It's good.
No, are you concerned about something?
No, I'm just looking at this.
Okay. Well, it's hard. Well, I don't know that, there's no got wrong necessarily, but I'll give you a moment. Yes, Gabby. Uh-huh. Okay, so for some of you, this is going to be my brief grammar lesson. Some of you, you know, this is old stuff, and some people, I have students, and not just in this room, that are still working on how can I join sentences together? What is legal and what is illegal? Okay, so, where are you? Okay. I ate a cookie. It was delicious. Is this a legal sentence? Yes, Carson. It is not. It is two sentences. So the first art, and I honestly, I have a student, not in here, and he is his ideas are really good, he's very engaged, and for the life of them, he cannot hear it or see it. It's like being colorblind or, you know, tone deaf or something. He just can't hear it and see it. So it's not a moral failing in you, okay? But no, this is two sentences. I ate a cookie. It was delicious. Here's how we can't do it. That is the notorious comma splice. You can't join two sentences with only a comma. You can do this. Semicolon. That's one legal option. I ate cookie. It's got that drama. I can say comma and a conjunction, and it was delicious. But we can't just have nothing, and we can't just have a comma. Now, I've advised my young man who just can't hear it, reading out loud. If you read your paragraph out loud to yourself, so because I have only 5, 6 of them now on Thursdays, we have the luxury of being able to share our paragraphs if somebody wants to. And often when they read it out loud to the group, they stumble over it, they catch all their mistakes. And it tells me, you didn't really look at this very carefully before you handed it in. All right. It seems like an unnecessary step. We all think we did fine. I don't need to read it again, I was fine. But proofreading is vital, and proofreading out loud shows you these things. Are we good? So like I said, some people, yeah, I have no problem joining sentences. And some people, I just can't, because the idea is in your head, and all the ideas are sort of swimming around in your head, and you're just pouring them out, and you don't see the break. Okay? Is there anything else that I wrote on someone's paper today that you really feel like you want clarification or feedback?
Maybe for me to jot an idea.
Yes. In your case, Lauren, and anybody else who wants to organize better, you know how we are on our essay, grouping our points? So we have a large, a major proof area, proof number 1, why Agamemnon should not have taken, and then we have supporting. It doesn't hurt, even on one paragraph, to jot your ideas down and group them that way, just quickly. I mean, we're talking about a few minutes. Why do we not write epic poetry? And then just jot down a few ideas in the margin, see if any of them are joined with each other. You know, if they're similar, you might want to put those ideas together in your paragraph. If any one of them leads to another one, then you might want to put this one first. Does that make sense? And sometimes just putting them down on the paper and looking at them and thinking it over and saying, oh, you know, those are almost the same thing. Because some people, and I don't know if it was yours or some people would put something at the beginning of the paragraph and then something very similar at the end. And it made me feel like, well, you just said that. You said that up here. You don't need to record. But it was maybe a slightly different take on it, you know, a different nuance on it, but you could put them together. Okay, Kyle, yes. It's attacking.
It's really hard to decide in one paragraph. When I have a bunch of different ideas, like some of them lead to each other, but some of them are just like so different that you don't have another paragraph.
This is, yes.
And like, I tried to put it in, and like, I can't put that in. It needs a new paragraph.
So what is,
I have to drop the idea or something.
yeah, okay, so I was just going to say, but you answered it already. What is the solution to this dilemma? You may have to drop an idea, which is painful. It's like throwing out one of your little babies or something, you know what I mean? It's like drowning the puppy runt. Nobody does that anymore. I don't drown, for YouTube land, I don't drown any animals. But it's painful to feel like I have a good idea, but it's just not, doesn't fit here. It's just not useful here. But sometimes we have to make the hard decision and just sort of, this is why writers tend to keep a notebook of some sort with ideas, because it might come in handy another time in another context, and you can go back to it and find it. But no, I agree, and sometimes I'm glad you feel that way. Ethan. Okay, yes. Well, may I see your paper? Do you mind if I share anything? I'm not gonna read your whole paper. Okay, so I'm going to just look. So it's something. So Ethan is talking about the fact that there were places where I just crossed out unnecessary. Here's an example of something. I will once again say. Okay, I know, because you said it right after. Anytime you refer to your paper and you say things like, I am going to show that. In this paragraph, I will explain that. I will once again, basically anytime you say, almost anytime you say I or refer to your own paper, it's not necessary. It's just extra words. Yes, Ethan. Yes.
That was to show the contrast of the beginning, which is the proof, and show the contrast.
So, and part of Ethan's problem, but no, I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean this in a good way, is Ethan addressed himself to this like one of our big essays. And it was just one paragraph statement. So it wasn't meant to be, it was just sort of your ideas. So it's just supposed to be like a one paragraph response. And so I see that exactly. Here's something else. Okay, so those of you, raise your hand if you've done Lost Tools of Writing. Okay, so here's, and you were doing a Lost Tools of Writing sort of thing. I see that in the This Matters Too, okay? So here's what I really didn't like about using that. The way they taught you to use a formula, all right? And the amplification. To whom does this matter and why? And they basically had you writing, this matters to Mrs. Ferguson, because she's the one who gave me this crummy assignment. She's the only one who's going to read it. Not that you would put that. Don't ever use the words this matters to. Just say who it matters to. For example, if I'm going to use the essay we're writing. Why do we care if Agamemnon took Briseis or not, and why, whether it was right? Instead of saying, this matters to Iliad scholars everywhere because they like that sort of thing. Okay. That was a joke one. Let me use a real one. This matters to all of us because everyone lets their anger get away from them sometime. And we need to think about the consequences. Now I just get there, freebie. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. But here's what I don't want to say. That I want to say, since we all get angry, and since we don't always think about the consequences of our anger, we could learn a few things from the disaster that befell the Greek army in this argument. Do you see, I just told you who it matters to and why, but I didn't say this matters to. Does everybody understand what I'm doing? I mean, you don't have to use the words, I am going to show you. This matters to. Just say it without telling me you're going to say it. Does that? Okay, so this is the hard thing about writing. Writing is not a science. Writing is an art. There are rules that we learn, all those grammar rules, but it's also a matter, you've seen my pictures. Mrs. Ferguson has had no art instruction whatsoever. I stink at drawing pictures, and I know it. But I believe that I could get better with instruction and practice, but I'm probably never going to be Rembrandt. All right? And because it's an art, there's a talent to seeing it a certain way, and writing is like that. So we can learn all the grammar rules and still really stink at writing, because it just sounds like I fed it into a machine and it fed it back out to me. You know what I mean? Like I put in ideas and a robot wrote it for me. And that's a good place to start, because we need to know how to organize our ideas. And I think Lost Tools of Writing does that, but I'm trying to take us a step further. And so how can we say it without saying, this matters too, or I am going to show you, and that's something I really, really disliked about the papers I got when I taught Lost Tools of Writing, that everybody was doing it like it was a formula. And if I'm just babbling and you don't understand my point, it's fine. But because we have a whole school year ahead of us. All right? We're actually 6 weeks in already. But we have much of a whole school year ahead of us. All right? But does that make sense, Ethan? So I didn't mean to come down. So it is my burden to err on the side of being nice to all of you. My desire is, oh, they tried so hard. What a good job. But that doesn't help you. That doesn't do any good to you whatsoever. And it makes me feel bad when I start crossing things out and saying necessary. But somebody needs to tell you. Some people just use too many words because we think it makes us sound smarter. But it doesn't. It just... C.S. Lewis is the greatest model because he says the most profound things in the simplest way. He hardly ever uses fancy words, you know? He just says it. He just says it, and it's clear as a bell. And then you read it, and you think, that was so profound. And I understood it completely, because there was no fancy gadgetry and magical, long, 5-syllable words getting in my way. Not that those are bad words, but I feel for those of you who fall in that category, because that's me. I like to make it more complicated than it needs to be. I'm not a simple writer. It's work for me to write simply like that. Okay? So, do you feel better, Ethan? Or maybe you didn't feel bad to begin with, but... I know. So I want us to, so we're not doing a summa this week because you're writing your essay this week. All right? You already have a writing assignment, and I'm merciful. You know, if you can... Would anyone like me to look at their outline? Oh, yes, your epic poem. Oh, duh. Thank you. Okay, so just keep in mind, keep in mind that whenever I write on your paper, I'm on your side. We're on the same team, okay? I'm not trying, I don't want anyone to feel bad, but it does hurt when we get response. Oh, am I? He's not going to eat all day, is he? Yeah, we're going to talk about it today. So no more. So do you need? So I will just. Do you want me to glance over it for you?
I already have extra.
Well, but by the time I read this, it'll be too late to do you any good. Okay. Do you see what I mean? Yes. So do you feel comfortable with it, or do you want me to? Okay. So does anybody? Oh yes, thank you, Lexi. Does anybody want me to look? Okay, so now you're handing me your outline, but do you want me to look over it right now? I mean, do you feel pretty good about it? Pretty solid about it? I'm not going to collect the outlines because by the time I read them, you'll already have written your essay. Oh, okay. So that's fine.
These are my seniors.
Oh, okay. Let me reiterate. Hey guys, over at that table. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Can you find it? Does anyone want me right now to look over your outline because you're not totally sure you did what I asked or you're not completely comfortable? Would you like me to look at it then? Are you kidding me? Oh, you did? Oh, I thought I handed it back. Okay.
I usually have this.
Okay, I've got Karsten's. Okay. I'll just keep it, Karsten. I want him back? Oh, okay. So, yeah. Mostly I just want to make sure everybody had, okay. Okay. Yes. Great. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. And this is your, okay. Okay. So, yes.
Are we supposed to write for the whole trial line? So I know that we had something about.
Oh, can I use mine
Okay, just a second.
some of the arguments on the other person's
Okay,
side?
Alex, you need to start over because I didn't hear quite what you said at the beginning.
What are we supposed to be writing in the outline? Like the layout of it.
Well, look at Ethan's for an example. What he wrote is his proof 1, here's his main proof, and then here's his 3 points. Here's his proof number 2, and then his 3 points. Here's proof 3 and his 3 points. And here's the 2 points he's going to refute. And I told him not to worry about the introduction and conclusion because we're going to talk about it today.
I wrote mine from the as regular space without. I didn't do it like that.
Okay. You mean you already wrote the essay, sort of? Like in complete
basically.
sentences and, okay. Because this was a step just to organize our thoughts. So you might need to do a little, rewriting because we're going to add some stuff to it today.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay. That's okay. If it's typed, then it's easy to add and change things around. But that's the idea. Does this make sense now? Okay. I'm sorry I was unclear.
Yeah, it's alright. You're good.
Because if somebody wasn't sure what to do, that's on me. Can we all take your reading guides? Hey guys, we are already, oh my gosh, we are already half an hour almost in. Let's take our reading guides and turn to the back. To page 123. This week you're going to take your outline. We're going to add an introduction and a conclusion, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, which is probably review for all of you. And then we're going to write it out. Now, remember, some of you did these with me last year. Remember what I told you essay means? Essay just means an attempt, a trial, a practice. That's all this is. This is not, your magnum opus of your life, and your life is all downhill after you write this paper, because this is the pinnacle of your life. No, it's not. And thank goodness that it's not. So that means if there is misunderstanding, we will use the first paper to clear it up. And I'll say, why don't we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? Okay? But everybody should have their 3 proofs and what they're refuting on their outline and be ready to write that. We're going to add an introduction and a conclusion. And on page 123, I added, I have some notes on that. Also, if you turn the page to page 125, it's an expanded, what is in an introduction? Actually, let's go to page 125. Inform your reader. Make your reader favorably disposed to you. Draw your reader in, maybe by asking a question, challenging them to do or imagine something, using a quote, giving a relevant short story. Don't do all of those. You don't need to do all of those. Please. Here's an example. Here's asking a question. Has anyone ever given you a gift and then snatched it away? Or, if that hasn't happened, how would you feel if someone gave you a gift and snatched it away? Yes, absolutely. So, instantly, your reader's like, ooh, I'd hate that. Or I remember when Grandma, Auntie Jane gave me that, those golden coins, and then she accidentally gave them to me, and they were for my brother instead. She took them away and gave them to my brother. Hopefully Auntie Jane did not do this to you and traumatize you. Now, if I ask a question like that, which side do you think I'm going to argue? Agamemnon should not have done it because it stinks when somebody gives you something and takes it away. What if I'm arguing the other side? Has anyone completely ever embarrassed you in public? Like Achilles did Agamemnon? Has anyone ever just chewed you out and insulted you in front of all your friends and coworkers? No need to answer that question. But do you see? Now that's a question I might ask if I'm arguing yes, he should. Because Achilles was just asking for it. Do you see? My choice of question depends on which side I might be arguing. Where do I want to steer my audience? Do I want him to feel favorable towards Agamemnon or unfavorable towards Agamemnon? Right? Do you see how that works? The other thing I need to do is give the backstory. That's the narratio, the backstory. What the heck's going on? Now, do I want you to tell me the entire story of the Trojan War? Oh, thank you, Ethan. No, I so do not want you to tell me the whole story of the Trojan War. Well, just collections of it, yes. But we just need to know the basics that are necessary to understand this issue. Yes, Karsten? Yeah. Right. So, you know, think about what do we need to know? We need to know that Agamemnon was forced to give up his own girl because of a plague. And in retaliation, he decided to snatch Achilles' away. And Achilles got angry and pulled out of the war. I feel like that's probably all we need to know, right? And you can, I know you are all skilled enough to write this in some artful way, you know, that makes it sound nice. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say wife? Yeah, I meant slave girl. I meant Briseus. No. My brain, I'm not feeling 100% today. I have had a COVID test and it was negative. Don't run away from me. I'm safe, relative, as safe as I ever am. But I'm not feeling, I'm a little, my head hurts and so anyway, yeah, but girl, slave girl. And then I also need to know what point you're arguing. All right? And it's nice, well, no, never mind, I'm not even going to say that. So I need to know in your introduction, do you think you should have or shouldn't have? That's really the necessary parts of an introduction. All else is frosting on the cake, okay? It's all making it sound nice, drawing them in, you know. It's all just technique, but that's the information that needs to be there. Draw your reader in somehow. I know you guys have done this many times on other papers, practiced with this. Tell me the backstory that I need to know to understand, and tell me what side you're arguing. Then you've got the body of your paper, right? Proof 1, proof 2, proof 3, refutation. Then we get to the conclusion, which is at the bottom of page 125, your peroration, your peroratio. No need to do all of these. Inspire your reader with a favorable opinion. Amplify points in the previous sections. Rouse emotions. Restate in summary your facts and arguments. And the ever popular, who cares? Why do we care? Why are we even talking about this? Yeah, Kyle. Carl. Carl.
Your introduction needs to be like a fishing rod. You need to have a little bit of ready to catch a bait.
We didn't. Yes.
That's what your body does. You're starting to build
Yes.
it in, and then once you have them, you finish on conclusion.
Yes. So, everybody look at me. Do we all feel like I've given you enough information to do this? Some of you have done it before, okay. Because sometimes I don't get responses and I'm like, I need to keep talking because they don't know what I'm talking about. And you're just thinking, is she ever going to shut up because I so know what to do? And it's okay to, don't tell me to shut, I appreciate not being told to shut up, but just say, yes, Mrs. Ferguson, we understand. You know, like that, okay. Okay, let's turn in your reading guide. So that's your writing assignment for the week. And, oh, one more thing. Go to the very back page. See that empty back page? At the top, write elocution. We're going to make our own elocution list. How do we spell elocution? E-L-O-C-U-T-I-O-N. Elocution. Yeah, just at the back, just at the last page, at the end of your book. What? Well, we're not going to do the dress up, but we are going to do, okay, no dress ups, no dress ups. Okay. Okay, everybody write this down because we need to move along. Parallelism 1. You guys have done this before, some of you. Some of you did it last year with me. Parallelism 1, implying that there is going to be a 2. And yes, there is. You're on the back page. Alex, you're on the very end of your book and you're writing this down on the final. Yeah. Write it quickly. Sorry. I'm just feeling very rude today. Yes, parallelism 1. Yes, parallelism 1 is what we're calling this. Parallelism is when we use 3 words of the same part of speech because it sounds nice. And when we use 2, it sounds like an accident, and when we use 4, it sounds like your thesaurus threw up on your paper. 4 can work sometimes. It sounds like you got a little crazy with your thesaurus. So, we can do this with any part of speech. We can have 3 adjectives. Agamemnon was abrupt, fierce, and uncontrolled when he took away Achilles' slave girl. 3 adjectives. We could use 3 adverbs. Achilles behaved petulantly, childishly, and how else did Achilles behave? Rudely. Selfishly. Selfishly is even better. When he decided not to help his compatriots in battle. It's 3 adverbs. We can use 3 verbs. Achilles. Okay, those wouldn't be verbs. Achilles. Okay, Agamemnon. I like Agamemnon better. Agamemnon. No, I can't think of 3 verbs. All I can think is Achilles later. Achilles went out to battle, and he fought. He slashed, hewed, and slaughtered. Yeah. Okay, 3 verbs. Okay, it can even be 3 nouns. Diomedes, Odysseus, and Ajax all thought this was a bad idea, but Agamemnon proceeded anyway. 3 nouns. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? This is easy enough. And what I'd like you to do is when you're writing your paper, you know, so I'm writing here, and this is the line with my parallelism. You can just write the letter P out in the margin. Yes. You know what? You can vote that, and I respect your vote. If someone else has decided not to vote them out, I will allow you to use nouns, but Ethan does not have to use nouns. It is, I like the others better, I will admit it. It does just feel like a list. But technically, it could be named. Okay. Okay, nix on the names. We agree, nix on the names. Okay, so that is your writing assignment for the week. Bring those back to me next time. No summa, nothing else. And all your ideas should already be on your outline. You know, so it should just be writing and putting it together. And this essay. Yes. Okay, would everyone please turn to page, would everyone go to 19? And let's just briefly look at Archilochus. Just really briefly. We don't have time to go very deep, but I just want to highlight one of them. As you probably could see, Archilochus is a little snarky. You know, he's a little jokey and snarky. But the second one that I gave you on that page, I want to ask you about it. It says, let him go ahead. Ares is a Democrat. There are no privileged people on a battlefield. What does he mean, Ares is a Democrat? What do you think? What, Karsten? Here, hey, okay, everybody talked and I can't hear Karsten. Say it again. Okay, anybody want to help? Ares is the god of war. Any other ideas? There was talking over here. Did somebody have an idea? What does it mean? It does sound funny. Okay, Hannah has an idea. Shh, guys. Say it again, Hannah, and a little louder. He does decide who dies, and what is democracy? Okay, but this has nothing to do with modern American politics. What is democracy? Okay, and does anyone's vote count more than anyone else's? No. Everyone gets the same vote. What do you think, Matthew? Okay, so yes. So technically, it is a system of ruling where the people rule and questions are decided, but everyone gets the same vote. What about a battlefield? Gives everyone the same vote.
So this is just kind of my idea of it. Ares is really just symbolic of a group of people, and then that people rule in the battle to decide, every sphere you decide who you want to throw it at. So Ares is just that collective consciousness of the entire battle.
Okay, that's very interesting. And that could be, I mean, this is poetry, so we can take it multiple ways. What do you think, Ethan? Okay. Which kind of goes along, remember the next line. There are no privileged people on a battlefield. Just because you're the king doesn't mean the spear won't kill you. You have as much chance of being hit by a stray arrow as anyone else. So Archilochus says, let him go ahead. Hey, you want to go out on the bat? You go for it. Ares is a Democrat. There are no privileged people on a battlefield. Good luck. Good luck. Archilochus is kind of our anti-hero. You know, he's like, yeah, you go ahead. In fact, that first one, he's thrown away his shield in the bushes, and he says, good shields can be bought. Don't care. Tossing it and running. I'll buy a new one. Like, what? What? Archilochus is the voice of the other side. We have these Greeks always battling with each other. Our whole school year here is going to be a series of people fighting with people, basically. And we hear these heroes, you know, oh, we rush into battle and we stand over the body of our fallen comrade and fight them off. Or we hear the other voice, yeah, I can buy a new shield. Ditching it and running. Because it's weighing me down. And then we have this very poignant one. After I said I wasn't going to read these, I ended up reading them. The last one. The young with blue javelins for the games. Young leaves and coronets over young ears. The young people, in other words, who are out, it's like a sporting event. Oh, let's all throw our javelins and see who can throw the farthest, and let's wear little leaf crowns and everything. It'll be so fun, and we'll have snacks. Archilochus says, they have yet to see battle spears, thick as chaff in the air. They don't know what it's like. Oh, it's so fun, and we're practicing. No. When the javelins are whizzing past you and the arrows, it's not fun and games anymore. They don't know. But the idea is Archilochus is telling us, I know. I know what it's like. And you know what? You throw your shield in the bushes and you run for it. Anyway, I think Archilochus is interesting because he's that other voice of what is it like in war. Okay, we are very rapidly. For those of you who had me in junior high last year, this is totally review for you. We're going to talk about the Minoan Civilization really quick. And we talked about this last year. But if you could turn to page 21. I told you that Greek history is divided into various time periods, and the first one is the rule of the Minoans. So we have our map of Greece and the islands up here. The Minoans lived on the island of Crete, this long, skinny island, and had their main city at Knossos right here. And you all know, most of you read over the summer, the story of Theseus and the Minotaur, how once upon a time King Minos of Crete was demanding that the Athenians send a certain number, sometimes it's usually seven boys and 7 girls, to feed to a creature that was half bull, half man, called the Minotaur. Do you know the Minotaur has a name? His name's Asterion. If this ever comes up, and like you're playing Trivial Pursuit, Asterion. And he is trapped in a maze-like structure that they called the labyrinth. So he can't get out. Obviously, they don't want him out rampaging. And so they send the Athenian youth in here, and they just never come out, and we assume that the Minotaur eats them. And Theseus, son of King Aegeus, goes and he kills the Minotaur and he frees Athens from this terrible burden. Basically, that's the story we knew about Crete and King Minos and all of that until, let me read this quote I wrote on your outline. This is from the Greek historian Thucydides. The ancients treated King Minos of Crete as a historical personage. We assume he is a real guy because Thucydides wrote this: "For Minos was the most ancient of all that by report we know to have built a navy, and he made himself master of the now Grecian sea, and both commanded the isles called Cyclades, and also was the first that sent colonies into most of the same, expelling thence the Carians, and constituting his own sons there for governors, and also freed the seas of pirates, as much as he could, for the better coming in as is likely of his own revenue." Thucydides assumes King Minos is a real legit guy, the King Minos who was feeding people to the Minotaur. But everybody in the modern world's like, yeah, no, these people are crazy. They'll believe anything. Until, in the 19th century, a man named Sir Arthur Evans was another of these guys who spends his youth making money so he can spend his middle age going and digging things up. He went to Knossos and he started excavations, and this is what the palace they dug up looked like. This is the floor plan. I don't know. Sounds like a labyrinth to me. There's an awful lot of passages. This is the floor plan of the palace at Knossos. You can pass it around. And suddenly, this news hit the world like, holy cow. Apparently, there was some sort of large labyrinthine structure on Crete. Is there truth to these stories? So they start digging up. And you remember last week I brought a sarcophagus that had frescoes on it where they have wet plaster and they paint. They found more frescoes. I'll pass this around too. This is the famous one. The quality wasn't good enough for me to get a big 8x10 made of this. So it's a bowl, and there's a guy, a person in the front, and then there's a person upside down on top of the bowl, and then there's a person standing behind. And it almost looked like a circus trick, like somebody jumped on top of the bowl and then jumped off. And they dug this up and they thought, wait a minute. So these guys had a labyrinth and they're doing something with bowls. What? This isn't the only picture. Like statues of bowls. They had a bowl fetish going on in Crete. There was something sacred or special about bowls. And so suddenly people realized these stories, maybe they have some basis in fact. Maybe there's something really there. And we just kind of poo-pooed it, and said, that can't ever be real. They also found pottery from Crete in Egypt at that time. They were trading, just like Thucydides said. He cleared the Sea of Pirates, probably for trade. They were trading all around this side of the Mediterranean, all the way down to Egypt. There was a whopping big civilization here until around the year 1450 BC. And it didn't end like that, but it was just sort of slowly over a couple of generations. There's fewer and fewer people, and things are poorer and poorer. The stuff they bury with people gets poorer and poorer, till they're obviously not in charge anymore. And the people on the mainland are in charge at Mycenae, like King Agamemnon. And no one knows what happened. But my pet theory, and this is not just me, this is a lot of people, it just so happens that there's an island right up here, Thera, and it's called Santorini today. And I don't know, you can't see very well, it's shaped like a croissant. If you can sort of see that it's shaped like a croissant with a dot in the middle, it used to be round. A volcano blew out the whole center of the island. A volcano blew out the whole center of the island around 1450 BC. And do you see, they're this far from Crete. 70 miles, 60 miles. And you guys know from science books or from news, when a volcano erupts and that ash blots out the sun, the ash is not good for the soil. What if they stop being able to grow enough food? Yes. I'm pretty sure there is, but I don't know the details. That's an excellent question, Ethan. It's your homework for the. I like giving out that freely. No, I'm pretty sure they have found traces of volcanic ash, but it must not be enough to really bring it down, or there still wouldn't be people who don't think this is the reason. Some people have thought, well, invasion, but there's no signs of massive burning all the towns down. It's more like a gradual, we can't make enough food to live anymore and we have to go somewhere else. Yes. Oh, it's very bad for you. Absolutely. I think I've told some of you that when I was a little girl in Alaska, a volcano erupted. It was 150 miles from Anchorage, but the ash was falling on Anchorage, and they warned people with respiratory illnesses that probably you shouldn't go outside while it was falling. It was just like gray snow. So that's the Minoan civilization. Whatever happened to them, they passed the torch. We don't know, they have writing, but we can't read it. It's called Linear A, and we don't know what they had to say. We can't read it yet. Maybe one of you will devote your life to deciphering Linear A. You say, it's all because of Mrs. Ferguson. And I'll get into history books. You don't have to mention me. But the torch got passed to Mycenae, to big cities on the mainland, and that takes us to our next era, the Mycenaean era. That's Agamemnon's time. And we'll talk about that next week, all right? One more thing before we dive into the Odyssey. Oh, sometimes I wish this class was 2 hours. And you're like, oh, hour and a half. Okay, on page 21, I have also given you another poet. It's just a half a page or so excerpt. Sappho. Sappho, we only have fragments of, but we have more than Archilochus. She was, first of all, she was a lady poet, and even the male poets of the ancient world revered her. It was like, yeah, but no one can write it like Sappho. Oh my gosh. So we don't have a lot of her stuff, and the things that other people say about her make us wish we had more of her stuff. Now, we're all big kids here, so I will tell you dish the dirt on Sappho. Sappho writes love poetry. She's not about throwing her shield away in the bushes and running away because she wasn't in battle. It's all love poetry. And much of it appears to be to another woman. We don't know. It could have been friends. Don't know. But she was from the island of Lesbos. And that is why we refer to female homosexuality as lesbianism. That's where the word lesbian comes from. Lesbos, from Sappho the poet. And now you know the rest of the story. You're welcome.
Is that where the Paulus comes from?
Where what? No, they're Amazons. No. So, but that's where the term lesbian comes from Sappho and from Lesbos. However, despite the fact that this is not a good thing, it doesn't mean she doesn't write beautiful words. Do you know what I mean? And she writes beautiful poetry. So I don't think I really, this is her hymn to Aphrodite that I gave you to look over. But she writes this one poem, and I got to admit, it's really engaging. She sees a girlfriend who's out with a guy, and she just talks about how her, like her throat's closing up and her heart is racing and her palms are sweating, and it's much prettier than I'm saying it, and upset because this person is finding joy with her date, you know, and not with Sappho. And it's what we've all felt, frankly, when someone we have a crush on or someone we care about is off with someone else. Like it's the same. And it's just like, oh, yeah, 2,600 years ago it felt the same. When you love someone or you have a crush on them and they're off with someone else, you feel the same. Anyway, so I gave you some Sappho because she's just the most famous, you know, lyric poet in the ancient world, not epic poet. Oh, Sappho is on your bookmarks. Awesome. See, so it's good I mentioned her. Yes. And they were reading, what were they reading? They were probably reading Homer. Okay, let's go over your questions on page 20. What was the Iliad? What was the first word of the Iliad? Rage. Goddess, sing the rage of Peleus' son Achilles. What is this poem about? What is, Ethan? Okay. Definitely. That I agree with you completely. I was going more for it because rage was the first. I'm just going to read the first line. Sing to me of the man, Muse, the man of twists and turns. What is this poem about? A man. Not an emotion, rage, a man. And all the ups and downs that come with being a man, right? Did you notice how many lines, if you have your book, open up to page, 77. So that I'm not going to read the whole thing because of time constraints. I want you to look. I want you to start looking for Odysseus' name and tell me when you find it, what line. Line 25. We don't know who it is. It goes on. And it does, Ethan. It talks about pain and suffering and the twists and turns of his life and how he's traveled, and his companions ate the cattle of the sun, and Poseidon was chasing him. And all this time, there's no name. And when we find out where he is, who is he with? Calypso. And if you've seen Pirates of the Caribbean, then you have this sort of twisted Calypso idea. But Calypso, the name Calypso, is related to the apocalypse. Do you hear the word Calypso in apocalypse? And you know, often the book of Revelation is referred to as the apocalypse. What does apocalypse mean? No, it doesn't. Almost no one knows this. Don't feel bad. Apocalypse means unveiling, uncovering, revealing. And Calypso means hidden. When John got that vision, it unveiled the end times for him. Now, the other Ethan, we say death and destruction and things like that because we connect it with Revelation, but it actually means the unveiling. Calypso is the opposite. She's the hidden one, and she's kept Odysseus hidden for 7 years. Don't you want to marry me today and be immortal? No. Don't want to marry you and be immortal. So. And I want to go back to that. But the second question I asked you is, what do the gods decide? It's time. Calypso needs to let him go home. He can't stay hidden away anymore. Now, abruptly, suddenly, this is all we see of Odysseus. But we spend 4 books with his son Telemachus. Sometimes people who name these sorts of things call the first 4 books of the Odyssey the Telemachy, because it's the story of Telemachus. Why do you think we spend a sixth of the poem with Telemachus? Why do you think? Okay. He is having a little odyssey of his own, isn't he? Staring at. Did you have an idea? Did I see your hand? Did I see your hand? What? Okay, this is one of those ask a question to draw your audience in or whatever. What would it be like if your dad left when you were a baby and you grew up and he'd always been gone, but he'd always been famous and awesome? Put yourself in his shoes for a minute. I don't really know what he's like. People say he's my dad. I don't know. In fact, Telemachus, when Athena goes down and visits, in disguise, and even before that, when Minty shows up, Telemachus says, "I'll try, my friend, to give you a frank answer. Mother has always told me I'm his son, it's true, but I am not so certain." He's not insinuating that his mother, had an affair with the mailman and he's actually the mailman's son or something. He's saying, I don't know if I live up to my dad. People say I'm his son, but for crying out loud, he's Odysseus. He's awesome. He's brilliant. He's brave. And I'm just a boy. I'm just a little boy. I don't know. Can you kind of feel for him? That's rough. And Athena comes and says, Telemachus, we're going to go on a trip together. We're going to go on our own little odyssey, and you're going to grow up. You're going to grow up a little bit. Did you notice that by the time he gets to Menelaus' house, they call him the true son of Odysseus? Well, you're the true son of Odysseus. He's coming out of his shell. He's growing up. Which explains a couple of things. His mother, Penelope, comes downstairs. This is all in book 1. The bard is singing a song about the returns home from Troy, which just she hates because her guy didn't come home. And she says to the bard, shut up, quit singing that song. I don't like that song. Why, mother, poised Telemachus put in sharply, why deny our devoted bard the chance to entertain us any way the spirit stirs him on? Bards are not to blame. Zeus is to blame. He deals to each and every laborer on this earth whatever doom he pleases. And then he skips down. Courage, mother, harden your heart and listen. Odysseus was scarcely the only one you know whose journey home was blotted out at Troy. So, mother, go back to your own quarters. Tend to your own tasks, the distaff and the loom, and keep the women working hard as well. As for giving orders, men will see to that, but I most of all. I hold the reins of power in this house. Boom! He did. But here's the thing. Here's her reaction. Here's her reaction, though. Astonished, she withdrew to her own room. She took to heart the clear, good sense of what her son had said. She doesn't say, I am finding the wooden spoon and I am tanning his behind. He's 20 years old. I'm sorry if tanning your behinds didn't happen in your house, but 20 maybe? I mean, he's got to be at least 20. He's got to be at least 20. But here's the thing. It is time for him to be the man of the house. It is time for him to give the orders. I told you to watch for one other thing. I'm sorry, I'm just bleh. I want to talk about some things later, but I'm just kind of throwing stuff out because I want to make sure we don't run short. When we meet this council on Mount Olympus, and they say he's got to go home, Odysseus has to go home, did you notice the first thing out of Zeus's mouth? Oh, I don't know why these mortals are always blaming us for everything. Like, look at Aegisthus. I told him not to mess with Agamemnon's wife. I told him it was not going to come out well. I told him Orestes was going to come back and you know, kill him and Clytemnestra. First thing we hear is about the story of Agamemnon. Then later on, Athena is talking to him and says, oh, I just passed it. Oh. You must not cling to your boyhood any longer. It's time you were a man. Haven't you heard what glory Prince Orestes won throughout the world when he killed that cunning, murderous Aegisthus who'd killed his famous father? They keep holding up in front of him. Look, here's what it's like to take retaliation. Here's what it's like to stand up for your rights and the rights of your family. Telemachus, join the ranks of manhood. Time for you too. Does that make sense? So I already blew this one out of the water. What goddess is Odysseus's and Telemachus's helper? Athena. Obviously, I've said that over and over. What is a mentor? That was the next question I asked you. What is a mentor? I told you to look it up if you weren't sure. Did anybody look up mentor in the dictionary? Did ya? Okay. Yes, they teach you and they walk alongside you as they teach you. What were you going to add, Lexi? Say it loud, sweetie. Yes, Matthew.
Put down someone who guides the protagonist along.
Okay, okay. The reason we call mentors mentors is because of mentor. In this book, Athena comes to Telemachus in the form of his father's old friend, Mentor. And Mentor Athena travels with Telemachus on his little odyssey and teaches him, this is how we approach a king when we visit Nestor. This is how we command men. This is how we grow up. That word, that name mentor, became part of our language. And now we refer to anybody who travels alongside you, who's a wise counselor, who takes you on your journey, but the journey could be to learn a trade, to read epic poetry for the first time, to guide you along and be there with you. Mentor. So Telemachus has a mentor, and they go on a trip, and they, here, let me skip, okay. See if there's anything I want to talk about in, I want to talk about in book 2. So these guys that all want to marry Penelope, oh my goodness, there must be a lot of them, because at one point they pick out 30 or 40 of the best ones to go do something. It's like, how many of them are there? A lot, really a lot. Yes, it's hard to say who wants Penelope because she's just so gorgeous, and who just wants Odysseus' stuff and his title. Either way, she has been staving them off. What did she do? She played a trick on them. Hannah, what did she do? It was a burial shroud for Laertes, her father-in-law, but yes, weaving. Mm-hmm. Yes. Every night she undoes everything, and apparently the suitors are so stupid that this works for 3 years. Not the brightest bulbs in the pack. They're courting Penelope, apparently. No, but eventually one of her servant girls outs her. And they say, okay, enough of that, you're going to have to choose. And this is how the suitors in that council that they have describe her. I'm going to skip around. I'm not going to read the whole thing. This was her latest masterpiece of guile. She deceived us blind, seduced us with this scheme. A skilled hand for elegant work, a fine mind, and subtle wiles too. No one could touch Penelope for intrigue, But in this case, she intrigued beyond all limits. So question, what is Odysseus famous for? Say again? Somebody said something. Tactics, cleverness. The great tactician, you know? And his wife's just like him. He's a match made in heaven. Because she's sneaky and tricky too. I'm just gonna undo the shroud every single night and see how stupid these guys are and how long I can get away with it. Yeah, she's tricky too. But of course, Clytemnestra was tricky. You know, to put those two stories, is Penelope gonna be a good tricky or a bad tricky? This is the question. By the way, I meant to mention to my students yesterday and I completely forgot. This might have slipped your memory or your notice even. Agamemnon's wife Clytemnestra is Helen's sister. Clytemnestra and Helen are sisters. Just to let you know. Fun fact. So, Helen ran off and caused a 10-year war. Clytemnestra killed her husband as soon as he got home. Penelope is their cousin. Penelope is their cousin. What's she going to turn out to be? Good tricky or bad tricky? Point remains to be seen. But yes, she's just like her husband. So in book 3, they show up at Nestor's. Now, skipping back to book 1, when Athena shows up in Ithaca, there's a line where it says, you know, all the suitors are there, but Telemachus sees the stranger in the doorway, and he hurries over to bring the stranger in. Come eat. Come put your feet up, rest, and then you can tell me who you are and what you want. This was, you know, we talked about this a little bit in the Iliad, the whole Diomedes and Glaucus thing. It's like, oh, my grandpa was your grandpa's guest. Let's not fight each other and because we're friends of hospitality. So Telemachus knows, oh, we're supposed to be hospitable. But of course, he's got, I don't know, like 100 guys lounging around eating all his cows and pigs and stuff, and littered, you know they littered. The suitors threw things on the floor. I bet they did. And made a mess, but he does the best he can. Come in, sit down, eat first, then tell me who you are and what you want. Can you imagine just bringing a stranger in and saying, sit down, you look like you could use some food and have a drink. And when you're done, you can tell me who you are and what you need or what. You'd never do it in that order. Telemachus does it right, even though there's been no one to teach him. He grew up without a dad. But he shows up at Nestor's. He shows up and they're having a feast. Did anybody notice who they were sacrificing to? It's kind of funny. Poseidon. Nestor and his sons are sacrificing to Poseidon, the god who won't let Odysseus come home. And he does it perfectly. He shows him how you usher in guests, how you take apart a feast. You know what? Maybe Telemachus has never seen a decent sacrificial feast done ever. Because who was going to do it on Ithaca? The king's gone. There's nobody to be in charge. Maybe this is his first time. And he's nervous. Oh my gosh. He tells Athena, how can I greet him, Mentor, even approach the king? I'm hardly adept at subtle conversation. Someone my age might feel shy, what's more, interrogating an older man. And Athena, as his mentor, said, no, you can do this. Just go up there, remember who you are. Remember who you are. I'm thinking Mufasa and Simba now. You've got to step, it's time to grow up and take your place, just like it was Simba's, right? So, what does Nestor, this was the next question I asked you. What news does he get from Nestor about the homecomings and about Agamemnon specifically? Go for it, Matthew.
Well, some made it, others didn't, and for Agamemnon, it didn't turn
Yeah, basically that's the news he gets. Some made it, some didn't. Menelaus, he's going to hear from Menelaus's mouth, his journey. And he says, yeah, but we don't know anything about Odysseus, your dad. I'm sorry. He says, more than all other men, that man was born for pain. Hold on a minute. And I'm going to fast forward. You do not have to book 19. In book 19, we get to hear the story of how Odysseus' grandpa gave him his name. Give the boy the name I tell you now. Just as I have come from afar, creating pain for many, men and women across the good green earth, so let his name be Odysseus, the son of pain, a name he'll earn full. It's a bummer when your grandpa names you son of pain, I guess. The thing is, does it mean pain he dishes out to other people or pain he suffers? A little bit of both. For right now, he's suffering. He's going to dish out some pain, right? Or this would be a very unsatisfactory ending if he didn't dish out some pain at the end. Notice how often he's referred to them as the man of miseries, the man of pain, the man of suffering. That's what his name means. He's the man of suffering. Let's skip. Nestor stops talking long enough to send Telemachus on to Menelaus' house, along with Nestor's own son. And they visit Menelaus and Helen back home, hear the whole story of how he got blown to Egypt, had to wrestle with the old man of the sea to get information on how to get home. Does anything strike you as odd in this book? That's a vague question, I realize. Maybe I will be more specific here. Do you think it's strange that they seem to be just living a happy, hunky-dory life together after she was gone for 10 years and he spent 10 years and she just brings in her sewing. Oh, hi, I'm Helen. Nice to meet you. Yeah, this is where we live. And
The reason your dad's gone is because
yeah, and I'm really the reason that your dad is gone and he never came home for 20 years. And yeah, that would be me. I think that's a little odd, but it gets weirder. I don't know. Okay, I don't know, but I'm going to bring this up and you guys can run with this. So they start telling stories, okay, and reminiscing. And it says, such memories stirred in the young prince a deep desire to grieve for Odysseus. Tears streamed down his cheeks and wet the ground when he heard his father's name, both hands clutching his purple robe before his eyes. He was like hiding his face and just, no one see me cry. Menelaus recognized him at once, but pondered deeply whether to let him state his father's name or prompt him. So then another page. So Menelaus mused and stirred in them all a deep desire to grieve. A lot of grieving. Helen of Argos, daughter of Zeus, dissolved in tears. Telemachus wept too, and so did Atreus' son Menelaus. Nor could Nestor's son Pisistratus stay dry-eyed, remembering how his gallant brother Antilochus, cut down by Minoan, splendid son of the morning. They're all crying because they've got a lot to cry about. So it's not all happy, but then listen to this. This is the thing that floors me. Okay, so they say, you know what? Let's eat. Let's calm down and eat, and we'll discuss things in the morning. Then Zeus's daughter Helen thought of something else. Into the mixing bowl from which they drank their wine, she slipped a drug. Heartsease, dissolving anger, magic to make us all forget our pains. No one who drank it deeply, mulled in wine, could let a tear roll down his cheeks that day. Not even if his mother should die, his father die, not even if right before his eyes some enemy brought down a brother or darling son with a sharp bronze blade. So cunning, the drugs that Zeus's daughter plied, potent gifts from Polydamna, the wife of Thon, a woman of Egypt. So once Helen had drugged the wine and ordered the wine cups filled, resuming the conversation, they used drugs at Menelaus' house to get through the day, sounds like. I mean, I don't know how often Helen, this is all it says. Use your imagination. Yeah, does she just do this on a daily basis? Does she get through the day? Is this how she self-medicates? No, she's good at, she knows how to mix it. She knows how to dose it out, apparently. This lady in Egypt taught her. I don't know what that says about life in Sparta, but they need drugs sometimes. It is interesting, isn't it? I mean, and there's no other commentary. There's no comment. It's just, yeah, and she put some drugs in their wine so they could get through the night without crying.
I would assume that Helen would do that enough to where it's just
Yeah.
See, I would think to your point, why did you do that at so that he can properly get out somehow?
Well, it doesn't mean they forget everything. It just makes them happy. They were happy drugs. I don't know. I'm not making it up, though. That's what it says. It says they drank the drugs and it made them happy. I am not advocating any sort of drug use whatsoever, except for the occasional Tylenol or NyQuil when it's needed. But yeah, so that's what's going on at Menelaus' house, and they each tell a reminiscing story about Odysseus, because now they can do it without crying because they're drugged. And this is okay. I'm sorry, this just makes me laugh, but it's so horrible. So Menelaus is going to tell his story. So Helen tells the story of how Odysseus once was dressed like a beggar and he slipped inside Troy and she recognizes him. Okay. Here's Menelaus' story. It's about the Trojan horse. Oh, I remember that time when Odysseus thought of the Trojan horse. Listen to this. Listen to this. What a piece of work the hero dared and carried off in the wooden horse where all our best encamped. Our champions armed with bloody death for Troy. When along came you, Helen? Roused, no doubt, by a dark power, bent on giving Troy some glory, and dashing Prince Deiphobus squired your every step, because she took up with him after Paris got killed. Paris' brother, Deiphobus. Yeah. This is what she did. 3 times you sauntered round our hollow ambush, feeling, stroking its flanks, challenging our fighters, calling each by name. Yours was the voice of all our long-lost wives. She walked around the horse and thought there might be somebody in and was calling out to them, sounding like their wives, to try to see if any of them would answer. And Odysseus ends up having to clamp his hand over one guy's mouth because he almost loses it. Remember that time, Helen, when you walked around the horse and you tried to get us all slaughtered and remember that time? What? Let me have some more of that drugged wine. Oh my goodness. Wow. But unfortunately, he doesn't really find out much except that the old man of the sea says Odysseus isn't dead. Okay, that's good news. He's held captive by Calypso. And he says again, more than all other men, that man was born for pain. So, Telemachus hopefully will get home okay, because what are the suitors planning to do? Ambush him on the trip home, like hide behind an island and come and ambush him and kill him. But we now go visit Odysseus. And I asked you, what is Odysseus doing the first time that we see him and why? Crying. for home. He's been living with a beautiful goddess for 7 years who gives him anything he wants and has invited him to become immortal. But he misses home. And this, I'm going to read this. Calypso comes to him and says, I just might claim to be nothing less than she, Penelope, neither in face nor figure. Hardly right is it for mortal woman to rival immortal goddess. How? In build? In beauty? What's so great about Penelope? What's she got that I don't have? Well, I don't know. The suitors are eating it up. But here's what he says. Ah, great goddess, worldly Odysseus answered. Don't be angry with me, please. All that you say is true. How well I know. Look at my wise Penelope. She falls far short of you, your beauty, stature. She is mortal after all. And you never age or die. Nevertheless, I long, I pine all my days to travel home and see the dawn of my return. Much have I suffered, labored long and hard by now in the waves and wars. Add this to the total. Bring the trial on. I'll do anything. I'll face anything if I can just go home. I know you're immortal and I know you're gorgeous, but you're not my home and you're not my life. Kind of lovely. Yeah. And then it does say he climbs into her bed. So there's that. I've had some students say, Odysseus is a jerk and he cheats on Penelope for something. Yeah, but I don't know what she might do to him if he refused, I don't know. But in his heart, he longs for home. And so, she sends him off. Who wrecks his raft? Of course. Poseidon, who's been off, with the Ethiopians having a party. And you know how these gods don't know what's going on when they leave. It's like, oh shoot, you go for a party with the Ethiopians and then suddenly they let Odysseus go home. Whoa. Boom, crashes raft, yes. And he ends up on the strange island of Phaeacia, which just has too many vowels. Phaeacia. And he's lost everything. All his men are dead. They've been dead a long time. His raft is wrecked. He's got no clothes. He's got nothing. Remember all the war booty at Troy and all that? Nothing. I always think this. Remember Achilles' armor that they gave out to Odysseus? Presumably somewhere in the bottom of the sea. He's got nothing. And he goes up and he hides himself here. He found a grove with a clearing all around and crawled beneath 2 bushy olives, sprung from the same root, one olive wild, the other well-bred stock. A wild olive and a cultivated olive coming from the same place. When we visit Phaeacia, I don't even know how I pronounced it before, we find out they're kind of half wild and half tame. They say things like, oh, the gods just come and visit us and they don't disguise themselves. They just come for dinner. They say, oh, we live out on the edge of the world. Mortal people don't really come here. We live too far apart, out in the surging sea, off at the world's end. No other mortals come to mingle with us. Who are these people? We're going to find out, in your reading this week, you're going to find out Odysseus has been hanging out with a lot of monsters and horrid things. And it's been ugly. All right. Calypso was beautiful, but the ones who came before her, it got ugly. And he's been in sort of fairy tale land, if you will. You know, the world where there are monsters and things like that. He did. He's been a long way. And now he's back, and these people are civilized. Are they hospitable? They're very hospitable. Come in, Odysseus. They don't know he's Odysseus. Come in, stranger. Nausicaa, the princess who gives him clothes and says, go to the town, talk to my mom first. You notice that? Yeah, don't go to go to my mom. My mom's a softie. She's the one you need to fling yourself on her good graces. They're very hospitable, but they're a little odd. They don't do warlike things, they dance. They're awesome dancers. But they know something. Every stranger and beggar comes from Zeus. It's very much like the Christian, and many have entertained angels unaware. Practice hospitality, because people have entertained angels not knowing it. They knew this. Could be Zeus. Be hospitable. Be hospitable, and they are. And they offer to take him home, but right before they're going to leave, finally, Odysseus spills the beans. I am Odysseus. And they're like, now you got to tell us your story, please. So, for much of this week's reading is going to be what we think of as the Odyssey, okay? Cyclops and sirens and the underworld and Circe turning people into animals and all that cool stuff. That's going to be your reading this week. It's fun. It's the fun part. But ask yourself this as you read. With one last thing. Everybody look at me. Carl, you with me? Ask yourself, every time he meets someone, do they behave hospitably or do they not practice hospitality? Because that's the question. In fact, at one place, and at numerous places, he's going to say, let's find out what kind of people they are. Are they people like people who live on bread? And he doesn't just mean like, you know, if they're doing paleo, they're not really people. If they don't eat bread and they only eat meat. He means practice hospitality, you know, practice agriculture, practice all the things that make for civilization. Are they like that? Or are they not like that? Okay? Essay, do your best. If I have failed you in giving instructions, we will work it out and we will do better the next time around, all of us, okay? And read the next 6 books of the Odyssey, and I will see you next week. Have a great week.